Fujian Chamber of Commerce is one of the bigger associations for Chinese business in New Zealand. I wish the best for its members, that they can do well in our economy, and that they can learn from each other and do business with each other. And it's just great to see all these people getting together to talk business. Well, the drop in GDP was a bit disappointing, and I think it's a warning to everybody that we're starting to see the long-term effects of the COVID shutdowns and the closure of the border. So we've all been been optimistic about the New Zealand economy because it's bounced back faster than expected. But it's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride from here as we work out how the economy deals with having borders closed to pretty much all our international tourism. We don't have the migrants flowing in, and that is going to make a difference for our economy and create quite a bit more uncertainty. Well, I think we've yet to see the longer term effects of the decisions that have been made around managing COVID. The good news is that the vaccinations are coming. I think people want to see that as soon as possible, and then we need to adjust to a world with no lockdowns and with our borders open, and that means there'll be a bit more risk, and I hope the government will be able to adjust to living without the tools of the lockdown and the closed borders. I mean, in a way they are simple solutions, but if we want to get this economy reopened, then we'll need to adjust to the risks that someone may be crossing the border and COVID may turn up again. Well, every time we think real estate's going to slow down, it speeds up. There's always risk in a housing market that's been going up so fast. It feels like it shouldn't be able to keep going up that fast. However, interest rates are very low. There's strong demand and limited supply. So it looks like the real estate market will be pretty good for a while, even if it goes a bit slower. Look, I think the real estate market is probably, I don't think the real estate market is healthy, just because it's vulnerable to interest rates rising. If interest rates start rising, then people who've taken big risks in the real estate market could find themselves under some pressure.
今天的研讨会因为结合了福建商会今年的年会，所以呢，首先就是把会员之间的情感，因为 lockdown， 因为疫情原因嘛，所以我们也是经常没见面了，很长时间没见面，所以呢，今天的会议呢，就是让大家们在一起聚在一起，共聚枪情，共同来探讨交流，这是一个目的。第二个呢，就是我们今天请的一些重量级的 VIP， 主要是在谈一谈，在当今这个两大背景之下的这个经济跟商业的发展。什么两大背景呢？第一个就是疫情之下，我们有机遇有挑战；第二个呢，就是中国跟新西兰刚刚完成了自由贸易协定的这个升级版，所以呢，在这个大背景之下，我们福建商家包括我们是这个商业人士呢，有哪些的机会可以请 VIP 贵宾为发文来做一些分析跟交流。这周呢，在华商俱乐部的这个我们的启动仪式上面我们的总理简德理做了一个阐述。应该来说，在疫情之下，在整个全球的范围之下呢，应该大金融产业是一个非常招揽的产业，所以呢，应该来说，新西兰有这个美国的优势应该来说呢，我们有很多的福建商家，包括很多的华商，海外的社团很多朋友，他们都在从事这个大健康跟保健产业的这么一个产业，应该来说大有机会。我觉得呢，在这种特别是中新贸易协议这个升级版之后，应该来说在很多产品的选择、科技的输入，还有呢，包括关税这些政策方面呢，会有更利于新西兰的品牌方、商家、厂商把好的产品、好的科技出口到中国。我想这个是两个国家之间给我们创造的一个机会。我想呢，福建人呢，就是有一个港平海的这种精神，所以福建人呢是非常对经商、对从事贸易是非常热衷的，非常感兴趣的。我想呢，福建商会呢就立足于这么一个契机，这么一个平台，把更多的资源通过这福建商会的平台，然后大家做共享。 而且呢，我们叫做抱团取暖，大家呢凝心聚力，能够把福建商家，包括华人新西兰的这个商业活动呢，能够凝聚起来，能够形成一股力量，能够不管在新西兰本地的商业扩展，还是在对中国的贸易中间都能扮演一个角色，这是我们福建商会希望达到的一个成果。
Well, look, I think the Fujian Association is a fantastic organisation, and importantly, it's been the contribution of people from the Fujian province that have made a big contribution to New Zealand. So really my wish is that we continue to see people who are members of the association and the broader Chinese community actually continuing to contribute to New Zealand. I'd love to see more Chinese involved in the political process. I'd love to see them stepping up and taking more roles in the community, and that's already starting to happen. And so the Fujian Association is really important because of the business connections that are there and because of the investment that's going into New Zealand as a result. Well, look, I think at the very beginning, New Zealand, we were quite lucky because we're surrounded by the Pacific Ocean. We were one of the last countries to get coronavirus. We had lots of advance warning. You don't go through New Zealand to go anywhere else. So we had good starting conditions. The government did a good job of managing the crisis through the course of last year. I think personally that we should have got on to vaccination much, much faster. There was 55 other countries that were vaccinating in December 20, and as a result, if we'd done something like Israel, we could already today have 60 to 70% of our country vaccinated. Now going forward, what it's really about is thinking about how we start to open the economy up so that we can actually get money and flows of trade and capital and information and ideas moving through New Zealand. And that's why we're calling on the government to actually open up and reciprocate the Australian example by having at least an Australian bubble that starts us opening up the economy.
Okay.
Well, I think that's why it's so important. And having worked in tourism as CEO of Air New Zealand before I came to politics, tourism was our biggest sector in this economy. And I think the government is not looking after tourism properly because essentially there's a lot of great businesses, whether they're hotels, hospitality, events, attractions, that are doing it incredibly tough. There are some very heartbreaking stories of businesses that have been really struggling because of the lack of tourists and fundamentally the lack of government support. Tourism was a sector that was strategically very, very challenged with the border closures. And so the real opportunity now is if we can open up at least the Australian border, it gets 70% of our tourists back again because there's 1.2 million Australians that come here and 1.1 million New Zealanders that go to Australia. And so each country is each other's biggest source of tourism. And that would be good because it would enable some activity to start to happen to keep those tourism businesses alive, which is what we need them to do. Yeah, well, look, I think, you're right. We've had our biggest drop in a quarter with economic activity slowing. I think we're starting to see, obviously tourism is incredibly challenged, and I think it's very unfair that that sector is not more supported by government. But also there are questions even in construction and in some other parts of the economy that maybe there are some signs that things are slowing down in other parts of the economy too. And we were talking about shovel-ready projects. We wanted to invest in infrastructure projects and get moving quickly on the construction of those projects. Well, many of them haven't even started. And so they were supposed to be the job creators, the stimulus that we needed in order to get the country and the economy moving forward, and that just hasn't happened. So there's a lot of work to do to, A, get through the vaccination rollout plan very quickly and very well, and then to power up our economy and to be able to get it back again and growing well and growing strongly. Look, housing's got a different set of constraints around it, which are really supply side. It's really about how we free up more land. This is a country the same size as Japan. It's the same size as Great Britain, and yet it only has 5 million people in it. So we have plenty of land. The issues sit with our legislation around our Resource Management Act, about boundaries that we have around urban city boundary limits, and we know what we have to do there. We just have to build more houses. That's the challenge that we have in New Zealand. We have not kept up with demand over the number of years now, and that's what we've really got to go to work with. So that's the focus on the housing side.
Risk?
Well, there's a whole bunch of risks in the economy beyond just housing, but certainly housing is incredibly challenged at the moment because, as you've seen, house prices have gone up, 25% in a very short period of time, in a matter of months, and it's happening across all our main centres. So that is a real big challenge. We've got to work on the supply side. So, hey, Melissa, I better go now.
尊敬的各位来宾、女士们、先生们、亲爱的各位朋友们，大家下午好！非常感谢大家在百忙之中参加新西兰福建商会年会暨高端研讨会。 那我们期待已久啊，终于和朋友们在这相聚了。我是今天的主持人辛晓，
我是今天的主持人 Vivian。
So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Fujian, New Zealand Chamber of Commerce annual meeting and seminar. My name is Jessie. It's my honor to be your MC today, and I would like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to David Gao for having us today. And it is a great honor to have Sir Bill English and Dr. Jian Yang to be our keynote speaker. And also, it is a great opportunity to meet new executive committee.
今天是值得铭记的一天，我们非常荣幸地邀请到了比尔爵士以及杨健博士为大家带来的主旨演讲。同时，这也是新西兰福建商会第5届理事会换届以来，由高伟会长带领的新的理事会成员首次亮相。
是的，都说啊，福建是一个人杰地灵的好地方。那刚才我也和薇薇安了解到，现在据不完全统计，旅居海外的福建人已经多达1600万多人。其实放眼新西兰，我想说，这就是我们海外福建人的代表。那我们福建商会在这里自2002年成立至今，已经发展成为了新西兰的各个行业的翘楚。我们的会员单位、理事也是在日益的壮大当中。你看，今天我们嘉宾席座的各位啊，就是应该说我们全球华人、福建人的代表。所以呢，今天这场活动啊，也可谓是我们线上线下和大家互动的一次好机会。那在这要和我们正在收看我们 online 的我们的福建朋友们和全世界各地的海外的华人朋友们，大家问个好，欢迎你们收看我们今天的年会。So, Everest Fujian is a place where people of talent are coming forth every generation, produce this man of ability. It has one of the top 3 overseas Chinese community outside of China, with 16 million people living overseas. Since establishment, the Fujian Chamber of Commerce has grown to become one of the leading associations in New Zealand. And it has grown to become the best association as well. Many of its members engage in different industries and have become leaders in their respective sectors. They have made a great contribution to the economic and trade exchange, not only for New Zealand, but also for China.
下面呢，我们有请新西兰福建商会会长、安发国际控股集团总裁 David 高炜先生致欢迎词。
So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and join me in welcoming David Gao, the president of Fujian Chamber of Commerce, CEO of Alpha Group Holding Limited, to give us a welcome speech.
The Right Honourable Sir Bill English, former Prime Minister of New Zealand, Melissa Lee, a Member of Parliament, Christopher, Luxon Member of Parliament, Dr. Jian Yang, Chairman of New Zealand Chinese Business Club, Mr. David Wang, I think he's on the way, Chairman of China Chamber of Commerce in New Zealand, Ms. Nancy Lu, National Party Chinese representative. All distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. 4 days ago, we all as a nation celebrated Team New Zealand's victory in the American Cup. Today, we are honored to welcome you all here to attend our Fujian Chamber of Commerce of New Zealand annual conference. On behalf of our members, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Sir Bill English and Dr. Jian Yang as our keynote speakers to share their insight of the New Zealand-China Free Trade Agreement upgrades, especially Sir Bill English. I know by your family culture, you normally don't prefer for the function on Sunday, but as you mentioned to me that if the date cannot be changed, you make your best effort to be here. So it's really grateful for your support and effort to Fujian Chamber of Commerce and to my personal as well. Thank you so much, Sir Bill. And also, today's topic will also be business in China and New Zealand after COVID. I mean, we're still, unstable, but, after COVID. And the challenge and the opportunity in the Sino-New Zealand relationship in the new era. 2020 was a year like no others. It brought us unexpected changes, immense learning, and also more importantly, the opportunity to hit refresh. We are grateful for the unique position we are in as a country, with recovered and progress underway. The Fujian Chamber of Commerce have joined with other Fujian associations in New Zealand to support through donation to medical care groups across New Zealand. We have been organizing a series of online and offline business seminars with many other events and activities to enhance the friendship within the members and wider communities. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge our committees for their hard work. We would not have this achievement without their contribution. Looking forward to 2021, we are confident that we will continue to serve and support all our members, provide more business opportunities, carry on our online live stream business seminar. We are planning to launch an affiliate program where members can enjoy special discounts within the Fujianese merchant in a win-win situation. We plan to arrange a business delegation to visit China when the border is open. We are confident we will continue to be a strong platform for business exchange, continue to play an important role in developing friendship and the cooperation between New Zealand and China. 2021 is the year of ox. In Chinese culture, ox represent hardworking, courageous, harvest, and contribution. This is in line with the Fujianese spirit and the value of only when you work hard will you win. 爱拼才会赢 in Chinese. Let's work together for a fruitful year. Wish this conference bring you healthy, energy, prosperity, and happiness. Thank you. Let me in Chinese. 尊敬的新西兰前总理 Bill English 爵士，新西兰华商俱乐部主席杨健博士，国会议员 Melissa Lee， Christopher Luxon， 国家党华人代表陆女士，新西兰中国商会会长王磊先生，王会长刚刚抵达，辛苦。各位兄弟以及参加莅临会议的兄弟省级商会的负责人，各位媒体的朋友。新西兰福建商会的伙伴们，在线观看，我们今天有在线观看今天活动的朋友们，大家下午好，欢迎来到新西兰福建商会年会暨高端研讨会的现场。2020年是充满挑战的一年，新冠疫情给全球带来了巨大的冲击。新西兰作为西方抗击疫情最为成功的国家之一，在严格的边境关闭、封城及检测等举措下，曾保持着102天无新增病例的记录。然而疫情无常，在新西兰政府实施全国居家隔离禁令后的1周之际，新西兰福建商会心系医护人员的安危，在了解到广大华人医务群体面临着这个抗疫物资紧缺的现状后，由新西兰福建商会牵头，即刻与闽籍11家的社团团结协作，积极寻找抗疫物资采购渠道，迅速协调物资调配，统一购买了25000个一次性医用口罩，由商会负责安排运输，并赠予新西兰各地超过400个华人医务群体。 闽籍儿女在大难前的这个彰显的大爱，体现了新西兰闽籍侨团对当地社区的爱心和奉献。2020年，新西兰福建商会在各位商会伙伴的努力下，举办了多场线上线下的联谊活动、公益活动。我们也响应了中国侨联的号召，向2020年北京冬奥会华侨冰雪博物馆捐赠款项。疫情期间，我们除了积极对外开展口罩捐赠，也暖心安排了商会会员的防护口罩。2020年底，我们精心策划并推出了线上商业讲座，邀请各界商业精英针对各类主题进行经验分享，获得广大会员的积极好评。展望2021年，我们有信心继续团结服务闽籍会员与乡亲，为大家带来更多的福利，真正造福海外的侨胞侨企。我们将继续推动线上商业讲座。如果疫情好转，在情况许可的情况下，我们将组织会员回国商务考察，拓展商业机会。同时，我们将健全会员卡和会员的徽章等基础设施。我们今天有一些会员都领到了我们今天为大家准备的福建商会的徽章以及会员卡。我们计划在2021年底前推出新西兰闽籍商家巴闽通优惠卡联盟。福建商家可以通过这个优惠卡联盟带来更多的商业机会和消费群体。闽籍乡亲也可以借此享受商家的优惠折扣与良好服务。福建人不仅是爱拼才会赢，敢拼会赢，更加体现了我们福建人的精神。我们敢于承担社会责任，敢于不断的精进自我，敢于在挑战中寻求机遇，敢于做祖国旅居国的重要纽带。2021年牛年，牛在英文与 new 是谐音，同时牛也符合我们福建人勤劳果敢的精神。让我们携手与共，在新的一年怀揣新的目标，实现新的成功。牛年大吉，扭转乾坤。谢谢大家，预祝今天的活动圆满成功。谢谢大家。
谢谢高speech。我们刚刚高会长这边擦汗啊，这边把我们的整个致辞说完了。其实他刚才自由发挥了很多，把我们主持人要说的话都说了很多。谢谢高会长。其实我今天早上还在跟高会长在联系，他说真的要细数在过去的这个春秋，福建商会在这里的所做的事情，他在这致辞说一天也说不完。其实我想说，福建商会为中国、为新西兰付出和贡献了很多，同时也得到了新中两国政府的高度认可。那今天我们也非常荣幸的收到了中华人民共和国驻奥克兰总领馆阮平总领事为大家发来的祝贺视频，请大家看大屏幕。
Bill English爵士、Melissa Lee、Christopher、Luxon 议员，尊敬的杨健博士、高伟会长，各位嘉宾，大家下午好。感谢高伟会长的邀请，非常高兴有这样一个机会跟大家交流。我仅代表中国驻奥克兰总领事馆，向新西兰福建商会表示祝贺，感谢你们多年来为增进中新经贸交流所付出的努力，特别是在去年抗击疫情中所做的工作。过去的一年，新西兰很多华人社团与家乡省份守望相助，携手抗疫，做出了积极贡献，我再次表示衷心感谢。去年新冠疫情给全球带来巨大冲击，中国和新西兰分别在北南半球率先彻底控制疫情，恢复经济发展。中国在以习近平主席为核心的党中央坚强领导下，统筹推进疫情防控和经济社会发展 ，GDP 实现2.3%的增长，按计划完成脱贫攻坚目标，并出台了第14个5年发展规划。中国以自身发展 为世界包括新西兰在内的其他国家经济恢复带来了不可估量的动力和信心。2020年中新贸易保持在疫情前2019年的水平，非常了不起。新西兰多项产品对华出口逆势增长，中国继续保持新西兰第一大贸易伙伴地位。不久前，中国和新西兰签署升级版 FTA， 并共同签署加入世界上规模最大的 FTA 安排的 RCEP。中新两国在相互信任和理解的基础上，本着互利共赢的理念，在各个领域深入合作，既造福了两国人民，也为今天到会的所有成员单位提供了更多的商贸机会。朋友们，牛年已经到来，牛代表着强壮，代表着 habit。中国文化里，牛有着 working hard and contributing 的含义，契合了福建人爱拼才会赢的精神。千百年的历史和文化，锻造了中国的稳定性和可依赖性。牛年的中国，迎来中国共产党建党100周年，将以更加自信和积极的姿态拥抱世界合作，以更加坚定的步伐走和平发展的道路，致力建设人类命运共同体，给世界各国，包括新西兰带来更多的机遇。祝愿本次论坛取得丰硕成果，希望包括福建商会在内的新西兰各华商社团抓住中国推动形成新发展格局的机遇，搭建商业交流平台，服务侨商，凝聚乡情，为发展中新友好合作关系继续发挥重要作用。谢谢大家。
感谢阮平总理事给我们发来了视频致辞。那现在呢，我们有请新西兰国会议员、国家党民族社区发言人 Melissa Lee， 新西兰国家党国会议员 Christopher Luxon， 新西兰国家党华人代表陆女士。
Now it's my delight to have Member of Parliament National Party Ethnic Community Spokesperson Melissa Lee, my dear friend, and also MP of Botany Christopher Luxon, National Party Blue Jackets representative Nancy Lu, come to the stage. Welcome.
Welcome.
Distinguished guests, I'd like to first of all acknowledge the former Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Sir Bill English. It's a bit weird actually looking at my former boss sitting there and I'm speaking before him, so I'll just maybe like to curtsy him before I actually start. I'd like to obviously acknowledge my parliamentary colleague Christopher Luxon. It's a real pleasure to actually have him on board as part of the team. And former Member of Parliament, Dr. Yang Jian, lovely to see you again. And our lovely Nancy Lu. I'm so disappointed that she didn't actually join us as a Member of Parliament at this last election, but that's the way it actually goes. Next time, yes. So in less than 3 years, we are all responsible for bringing her into Parliament, I think. I'd like to acknowledge the chairperson, and I'd like to congratulate you for being elected. And President David Gow actually reminded me that it's been almost 3 years since I last saw him, and I feel awful that I haven't. So I'm going to have to actually get my dear friend over there, Maggie, to actually organise for me to actually come and visit Alpha, because Alpha does a great job. So perhaps I need some health supplements to actually sort of keep on going for the next 3 years. Is that like a hint? It's lovely to actually see familiar faces, and I know that the former presidents and the executive have done an amazing job, and the next executive have a tremendous job to actually catch up to what you have actually done. But the trade that the Chinese community have actually done for New Zealand is astronomical. And I was just reminded that going back to the turn of the century, the first Chinese actually arrived in New Zealand back in 1842. In the name of Upper Hopton in the South Island. And the settlement actually began with many coming for the gold. But I am particularly reminded of a trader by the name of Chu Chong. Chu Chong actually came from the Guangdong province. He actually came for the gold, but he had some other ideas. He was one of the first ones to actually actually set up a butter manufacturing factory in the Taranaki. He was the first person to actually package butter to export to the great land of England, mother country. The very fact that the shipment took such a long time that by the time it actually got to London, you couldn't actually eat it, but it doesn't matter. The very fact that he had the idea. During the depression of New Zealand, he was responsible for providing the livelihood of the people in Taranaki, particularly the Maori community, because he made them collect wood's ear fungus. You know the black fungus that we all eat in Asia, that New Zealanders probably didn't know that it was actually edible. It was, what's it called? Moor. And that was exported to China, providing the earnings for the local community. So the traders have been here for a very long time. And you make a huge contribution to New Zealand, and I'm here to say thank you. Keep on going, because we need you. The government certainly isn't.
Dajao Hao, kia ora, good afternoon everybody. Can I just say a big congratulations to David and all of your team for the work that you've put in bringing this annual meeting together. Can I just acknowledge all the special guests that are here as well, especially Sir Bill English. I just think that Bill and John ran the best government in modern history in New Zealand, and wouldn't we love them to be doing it again right here, right now. But the story of that government was very special in the sense of what was achieved, and how it was achieved was really very, very important. And it put business at the heart of what we did, but it was a government that actually could get things done, solve problems, care for people, and deliver results for New Zealand. And it was a really successful period in our history. So thank you, Bill, for your contribution, because often in New Zealand we don't do a good enough job of thanking our leaders for the service that they've given us. So thank you very much for that. Can I say to all of you as a Chinese community, we are incredibly proud of you, and the way that you have come to New Zealand, left your homeland, your language, your friends, your families. I know some of you here have been here a long time, some a short time, but you come and you get that first job and you work incredibly hard to get the second and third job, to save up the money, to start a business, to provide for your children with great education. And that example that we see with that Fujianese spirit of hard work is really a very big inspiration to many more of us in New Zealand. And we just want to say we are a party that understands aspiration and hard work and getting things done, and commerce, and being able to get ahead. If you're prepared to do hard work and innovation and also support the community that you're part of, that's a really good thing. So congratulations on what you've achieved. We've got a lot more to do to rebuild the country that we want to see emerge in the 2040s, and the Fujian Association and Chamber of Commerce is going to be a critical part of that. So thank you for what you do. Appreciate it.
I'll quickly say something in English and then back to Chinese. So, acknowledgement to an inspirational leader of New Zealand. We are very sad to see you leave. Everybody in this room, we're very sad to see you leave. But I have, we just had a little chit-chat just before this, and I have found that Sir Bill is working with a lot of younger generation, which is keeping him very energetic and very, I think, energetic going forward as well. So I was very, very pleased to hear that. Acknowledgement to Chairman Gao, thank you for your invitation, and to my 前辈, thank you for always guiding me through this opportunity. But back to Chinese. 在这呢，首先恭贺我们的新西兰福建商会今天的这个活动和年会。在这呢 acknowledge 我们所有的各位来宾，还有我们的王会长。我刚刚呢是先请教了一下某一位福建前辈、福建姐姐，所以我刚刚知道呢，原来新西兰福建商会是2002年成立的，所以明年呢已经到了第20个年头。我们在新西兰有一句话，有一个玩笑，我不知道大家有没有听过：5人以上的就是大企业，5年以上的就是历史悠久的企业。所以，作为新西兰福建商会，真的是非常高兴，我们这20年来能看到我们的福建同胞能在新西兰为我们的当地，无论是福建的社团还是我们的华人社团，都能带来这么多的帮助和影响。So The New Zealand Chamber, Fujian Chamber of Commerce started in 2002. So next year will mark its 20th anniversary. So over the past 20 years, I'm sure that they will share with us in the year to come about all the exciting things that they've done in the past 2 decades. And many more decades to come. So as the younger generation, I'm very proud to be part of the Fujian Association, and I have learned the only way that I can join 福建社团，我唯一能加入福建社团的，因为我不是福建人，我也没有嫁给一个福建人，我唯一好像能做的就是多为福建社团努力和贡献，总有一天可能会被邀请入会，所以在此感谢大家。
谢谢。
现在呢，我们有请新西兰中国商会会长王磊先生上台致辞。
It's my pleasure to welcome David Wong, the President of China Chamber of Commerce in New Zealand.
So firstly, I should say sorry for the late. I just went to the city center Alpha Group office. Queen Street 2, I think it's Queen Street 2. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to be invited to attend this event. So before I begin, I would like to congratulate to Team New Zealand for winning the 36th America's Cup last week. It was a momentous win for New Zealand. The win is significant and it demonstrates that New Zealanders has a strong fighting spirit and it can punch above its weight in defending the title. Not only that, the whole nation also works together as a team to prevent the community transmission of COVID-19 so that we can afford to have such large gathering this afternoon to the abbey of many countries. And I also would like to acknowledge the VIPs here with us today. Right Honorable Bill English, the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, MP Melissa Lee, and MP Christopher Luxon, and Dr. Jian Yang with a new title, Chairman of a new association. I think it's the Chairman of the China Chamber, no, not China Chamber, what's that number?
It's one more new title coming, right?
China and New Zealand Business Associate. Yes, yeah. And Nancy Lu, my friend. And of course, another David Gao, so President of the Fujian Chamber of Commerce of New Zealand. And I'm so happy to see many familiar faces and make new friends on this special occasion. As we usher to the second quarter of 2021, I'm very optimistic with the state of the economy. The New Zealand economy quickly bounced back from the impact of the pandemic, although certain sectors has been impacted in one way or the other. The China and the New Zealand relationship is growing from strength to strength. The upgraded free trade agreement is a success story for both countries. It has opened up significant trade and economic opportunities for New Zealand businesses and has been a catalyst for closer Sino-New Zealand cooperation across a number of areas. In addition, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, is also a great win for New Zealand, where China is a major contributor member. Will help New Zealand businesses take advantage of increased business opportunities. China and New Zealand are both beneficiaries and supporters of the current international order and the multilateral trading system, and both sides should strengthen coordination and cooperation to jointly safeguard the international order and the multilateral trading system and jointly promote the building of the community of human destiny. I wish China and New Zealand look forward to work together to actively explore new areas of cooperation, promote bilateral relations to create more firsts, and bring more tangible benefits to the two countries and their peoples. Therefore, the event like this, organized by the Chamber, will facilitate robust discussion between the public and the private sector and help develop new direct and trusted business relationships. I hope that both Chinese and New Zealand businesses will make good use of these platforms and further share information and experience, expand cooperation, and make greater contribution to the China-New Zealand partnership. By the way, around the middle of April, China Chamber of Commerce in New Zealand will invite the policymakers, economic and trade experts from China and New Zealand both sides to interpret the rules of the free trade agreement between the two countries and help business to begin their preparation works in advance. Last but not least, I wish to thank everyone present here for your contribution to the Fujian Chamber of Commerce and the business community. My best wishes to the Chamber and great success in your future endeavors. Thank you.
谢谢王会长。在刚刚两位 David 会长的致辞当中，其实我们都能够反复的听到两个字，就是共赢还有合作。其实这也是我们今天这场年会和高端研讨会的意义所在。从2020年开始啊，越来越多的人开始探讨如何在后疫情时代更好的生存和发展。那其实薇薇应该非常的熟悉啊，我们新西兰福建商会呢，自去年底就开展了线上的一些商务的讲座，专门提供给新西兰福建商会的会员，其实就是为了给他们真真实实、切切实实的帮助。那包括像前两天高伟会长为大家讲的新西兰的我们的华人回国投资的一些经验分享。这些实实在在的干货啊，不但可以帮助大家，同时也是为了告诉我们的会员们，我们和大家在一起，我们和大家一起面对困难，迎接挑战。那今天呢，我们也非常荣幸的邀请到了新西兰前国家总理 Bill English 爵士为我们带来主旨演讲。下面要有请我们的 Vivian 来为大家介绍一下我们的Bill 爵士，有请 Vivian。这是个很好的机会啊，让我们再次来认识一下 Bill 爵士。
谢谢欣晓。我用中文先给大家介绍一下哈。Bill English 爵士呢是新西兰第39任的总理。作为财政部长和总理，比尔专注于健全的经济政策和强有力的政府手段，旨在为个人和家庭带来更好的生活品质。比尔爵士呢，在全球金融危机期间，不但使新西兰的经济得到了保护，并强劲有力地帮助了新西兰实现了经济复苏。在比尔爵士告别政坛时，我们的总理 Jacinda 曾给予他较高的评价。他一直在坚持自己的信仰，他是一个有明确信念的人，一直真诚地为新西兰人造福，并将其作为他的工作重心。比尔爵士呢，现在是 Mount Cook Salmon 的主席，也是 Well Farmers Limited 的董事成员，也是几家私人公司的董事以及投资者。另外，他还是新西兰和澳大利亚公司和政府提供了很多的支持和咨询，并为其指导很多高级的管理人员。在2018年呢，女王生日庆典上，他被赋予了一个新西兰荣誉勋章，以表彰他在为国家做出的这27年的贡献。
当然了，要值得一提的是，我们的 Bill 先生也是人生的赢家。我用中文说啊，待会儿我要单独翻译给大家听。你看，事业家庭双丰收，他的太太 Mary 是一位非常优秀的医学博士，并且他们2位育有6个孩子，对，目前都已经成年。So now it's with special excitement, I'm pleased to welcome Sir Bill English, former Prime Minister, give us keynote speech, business in China and New Zealand after COVID. Welcome. 同时要有请我们的杨健博士为我们来做讲解，有请，有请。
重操旧业哈。
Keep going. Keep going. Thank you all for the opportunity to come along and talk to the Fujian Chamber of Commerce.
感谢大家来到福建商会的年会。
I acknowledge my former colleague Melissa Lee, my would have been current colleague Chris Luxon, and also Nancy Lu, our parliamentary candidate in the last election.
先向我们的Melissa Lee前同事还有Chris Luxon 新国会议员以及陆南致意。
Can I particularly acknowledge your chairman Gao Wei?
尤其是高伟会长。
I've had a long association with the Gao family through their very impressive investment in Alpha Foods in New Zealand.
我跟这高伟会长家族呢有非常良好的永远的这种关系，他是在食品行业里面有很好的投资。
It's a great example, like many others, of the benefits of New Zealand being able to produce products that are in demand in China, and New Zealand benefiting from the business and science skills of the owners of the business.
这是很好的一个例子，就是新西兰可以跟中国市场输出非常好的这种食品，同时呢，通过研发科技提高这种产品。
I remember launching an Alpha Foods product in Beijing, which was a fairly small container of a herbal product that was a derivative of kiwi fruit.
我记得呢，在中国的时候呢，去参加安发国际一个产品的发布，这个小瓶子的通过从这个猕猴桃里提取的一些东西。
So this was a business using a very low-cost waste product in New Zealand, kiwi fruit skins, and turning it into a product to sell in Beijing, which I was assured was very expensive.
这是一个非常好的例子，就是呢，把我们新西兰一些废品，比如说猕猴桃的皮，它从提炼出来，然后呢，成了一个非常好的健康品，然后在北京卖，据说是卖得非常贵。
And that business is just one example of the entrepreneurialism and innovation that we've enjoyed in the Chinese-New Zealand business relationship.
这只是一个例子，就是呢，我们华人这种创业精神，这种创新精神，在新中关系里面扮演的作用。
And it's a relationship which affects New Zealanders who aren't directly involved. The experience of our relationship with the Gao family and also my own interaction as a politician with Chinese influenced one of my sons who's now a Mandarin speaker.
这种关系实际上对很多人都有影响，通过跟高伟家族这种关系，然后呢，我的孩子呢，事实上呢，现在变成了一个可以讲中文的人。
And during the week, when I was in Auckland, I had breakfast with one of my nephews. I was concerned he didn't have a job, and then I found out he's been working for the Bank of China.
我在见到我们家族我的一个侄子我想他是不是有没有工作？结果发现他是给中国银行工作的。
He tried to lend me some money.
他想借给我一些钱呢。
These days I spend a great deal more time. I spend a lot of time on business and no time at all on politics.
这段时间来呢，我呢在生意上花了很多时间，基本上没什么时间搞政治了。
So I spend time with shareholders and staff and management, and I don't spend any time with government officials.
所以我花很多时间跟我的同事我的管理团队等等这些人，我很少有时间给政府部门的官员们。
I've enjoyed the challenge of starting our own family businesses and working with a range of small and large businesses across Australia and New Zealand.
我呢，这段时间呢，也在想办法弄我自己的家庭的生意，同时呢，也代理很多其他的大公司的生意，比如说澳大利亚、新西兰等公司的生意。
Almost all of those businesses are affected by a couple of fundamental facts.
所有这些生意，不管大还是小，都是被一两个非常非常重要的因素所影响的。
One is that the Chinese economy is now either the largest or second largest in the world, and the other fact is that a third of all global growth is the growth of the Chinese economy.
这两个因素呢，一个就是呢，中国现在是全球第一或者第二大的经济体；第二个就是呢，全球1/3的增长是由中国来创造的。
As you all know, we've been affected by COVID, and I just wanted to outline some of the ways that I think the New Zealand and the Chinese economy will affect our businesses.
咱们都知道呢，事实上是我们疫情对我们影响非常非常大。我只是下面大概讲一讲呢，这个经中关系这个在里面的作用。
As the president of the Chamber of Commerce said, in New Zealand, some businesses have been badly affected by COVID, and others have done very well.
就像那个高伟会长刚刚讲的一样的，这个很多生意在新西兰都被疫情所严重的影响，但有一些却做得非常好。
Even within some businesses, parts of them have suffered, and other parts of those businesses have done well.
有些企业呢，有些这个生意呢，它一部分受到了负面影响，另一部分呢，却又受到了好的影响，有增长。
I'm a chairman of a salmon farming business, where the US market has turned out to be very positive after COVID, but the Chinese market collapsed because a government official decided that COVID came back to Wuhan in a shipment of salmon from Norway.
所以呢，我这个在新西兰一家三文鱼养殖场公司工作当那个董事。那么呢，我们去美国的市场非常好，但是在中国市场却垮了。为什么呢？因为中国政府说这个武汉的这个新冠疫情呢，其实呢是从挪威的一艘三文鱼的身上转过来的。
So we can't sell any salmon in China. No one's buying it, but we can sell a lot of valuable sushimi in New York.
所以呢，到中国呢，我们就没法卖了。这个因为中国人认为这个三文鱼里面有新冠病毒，但是呢，在纽约的这个生鱼片呢，倒是非常的畅销的。
For all of our businesses, we need to look into the detail of how our suppliers or our customers are getting on. It's very hard to generalise at this time about what the prospects are for any given business.
所以呢，现在呢，我们就需要非常的了解一下我们的这个生意伙伴、我们的客户、我们的供货商他们到底怎么样。但是呢，在目前的新冠疫情下呢，其实我们很难去判断今后到底会怎么样。
So we've learned to really understand how our customers are going, and to have a hard look at how our suppliers are operating, including those from China, if only because it's hard to tell when their product is going to turn up in New Zealand.
所以现在呢，我们是就要特别的了解，就是呢，我们这个市场、我们的生意伙伴、我们的客户，还有我们供货商到底是如何。
The New Zealand economy has bounced back from COVID pretty well, but I think the GDP figures from last week showing that in the last year the economy shrank by 3% should tell us to be careful about being too optimistic looking ahead.
所以我们感觉好像新西兰的经济整体上还不错，但是呢，刚刚发布的 GDP 的这个数值呢，又发现我们市场下降了3%。其实就是呢，我们还非常谨慎，今后经济怎么发展，我们还不能太过于乐观。
We still haven't seen the full effects of closing the border to tourists and migrants.
我们现在呢，市场还没有完全看到我们关闭边界之后，对我们的游客、对我们的这个移民关闭之后，对新西兰经济造成的影响。
Like many of you, I hope that the government and the officials can show us that they can get the vaccinations done and that they can control any new outbreak of COVID. And we hope that they won't keep using the tools of lockdowns and border closures.
所以我们非常希望我们的官员政府能够给我们一个保证，就是呢，我们可以很快就有疫苗，这样呢，等于是呢，我不用经常去给它封锁，因为你反复封锁对经济造成冲击是非常大的。
The government needs to get used to the idea there will be some risks, and it's not going to work for business or jobs or families if they try and run New Zealand with no risk at all of COVID.
所以政府呢，事实上应该意识到，我们需要承担一些风险，我们没有办法去做到100%的安全。如果要这么做的话呢，我们的家庭、我们的事业、我们的企业、我们的经济都是会受到影响的。
I think we can all see that the way the Chinese government is now projecting its power around the world is going to create some challenges.
当然呢，我们大概可以看到，中国现在呢，在全球范围的这种能力的投送能力，事实上呢，在某种程度上是让很多人感到有些担忧，或者说某种挑战。
I had the good fortune to meet with President Xi a number of times when I was in government, and on one particular occasion, hear him talk to a group of about 10 people. At the Great Hall of the People.
我在当总理期间呢，有幸见到了我们习近平主席，然后曾经在一个场合，大概有10来个人，在人民大会堂，我们跟习近平主席在会谈的时候。
And in that talk, he made clear what's now become official policy, and that is that China's strength and political views would be put ahead of pure economic and trade policy.
那么呢，他当时在会谈的时候讲到说中国最终将会把他的一些政治理念，他会放到他的经济政策之前。那么现在似乎这已经成为现实。
New Zealand has done a good job for the last 20 or 30 years of managing its relationship with China in a constructive and mutually beneficial way.
那么新西兰在过去20-30年跟中国关系特别的，应该说比较稳定的双方都有一种互信互益的关系。
Our challenge is going to be that our friends and the close friends in the world, such as Australia and the US, are in a position of some tension and growing tension with China.
那么挑战就在于呢，我们的朋友们、我们的盟友们，比如说澳大利亚和美国，他们跟中国的关系现在非常紧张。
And we have seen some businesses in Australia, in fact many businesses in Australia, affected by the arguments between the Chinese and Australian government when the Chinese officials have taken action to, for instance, restrict Australian sales of Australian goods into China. We certainly don't want New Zealand businesses in that position.
那么我们看到呢，中国政府事实上因为中澳关系紧张，所以中国政府呢对澳大利亚的一些产品已经实施这个限制。当然，我们不希望新西兰也遭受同样待遇。
We're seeing the new president in the US continuing with much of the same policy as the previous president, and that is going to continue to be a tense relationship with China.
我们看到新任的拜登政府其实是在沿用了前任的特朗普政府的一些对华政策，所以呢依然是关系紧张的。
It's going to be important not to take too much notice of the political posturing of those various countries.
但是很重要的一点呢，就是呢，我们不要过多的去看那些政治上的姿态。
For the businesses who sell to China, have the reassurance that the Chinese market is still going to want the products that come from New Zealand, Australia, the US, even if the politicians would prefer it wasn't that way.
尽管说政治人物在那里讲很多东西，好像关系很紧张，但其实呢，不管是新西兰还是澳大利亚还是美国的产品，它依然在销往中国，而中国也需要这些产品。
And that's the reason I remain optimistic about the prospects for the New Zealand economy and for the New Zealand-Chinese relationship.
基于这一点，所以我呢对于新西兰经济和新中关系是保持比较乐观的态度的。
While Chinese consumers do listen to their government and their officials more than New Zealanders listen to their government and officials.
然后中国老百姓呢是比较听政府的话的比新西兰老百姓听政府的话要多一些。
They still want healthy natural products, and New Zealand is the best place in the world to get those.
尽管如此呢，中国民众依然还是非常希望得到新西兰的健康的优质的产品。
And in China, the government needs to be able to show the growing Chinese middle class that they will enjoy the continued benefits of a strongly growing economy.
所以新西兰呢，实际上应该有信心，就是我们会从中国不断增长的中产阶级来得到获益。我们会有很多产品卖往中国，而中国人会喜欢我们的产品。
So the Chinese government can only go so far in pushing its political objectives at the expense of economic growth.
所以呢，中国政府呢在推动它的政治议题的时候呢，它还是有限度的。也就是说呢，它不太可能完全的牺牲它的经济的利益去推动政治的一些议题。
And there are still so many things we can learn from the fast growth of the Chinese economy, such as the extensive use of fintech, of financial technology, that New Zealand, which doesn't happen in New Zealand in the same way.
当然是我们还有很多地方可以相互学习的，比如说这个中国的这个金融科技，事实上是在新西兰是落后于中国的。
And I suspect that some products, such as electric vehicles, won't become really popular until the Chinese economy works out that it can produce millions of them at low cost, and then New Zealanders will be able to afford them.
我还可以说，就是呢，电动汽车，我认为呢，在短期内不可能完全的非常的畅销，因为什么呢？只有等到中国能够生产出低价的电动汽车，那我想这个电动汽车可能会变成畅销品了。
And I hope the Chinese manufacturers work that out before the New Zealand government takes our petrol cars off us.
我希望呢，中国呢把这个事先解决掉。在我们新西兰取消这个汽油车之外呢，之前呢，先把它电动车研制出来，我们新西兰才可以把用燃油的汽油的车给它取消掉。
It's just one more example where, regardless of what the politicians think and the tensions among them, we will need to continue to do business between New Zealand and China.
所以呢，不管我们政治人物怎么想怎么说最终呢，我们自己做生意的人呢，还是要去做我们的生意。
And finally, can I just thank you for all the hard work you do in creating and running your own businesses and families.
所以呢，再次感谢你们，祝贺你们自己创造自己的生意，为自己家庭、自己本人。
When you're a politician, you say that sort of thing quite a lot, but now that I'm actually involved in running our own businesses, I really mean it.
当政治人物的时候呢，我说这种老说这种话，老生常谈。但是等到我自己做生意的时候呢，我说这个话是由衷而发的，我也如此。
I feel like I've been starting again, and I'm 25 years old.
我感觉我又在重新开始我的创业，我感觉我自己才25岁呢。
The first thing I had to get used to was that I didn't have a driver.
那第一次第一个认识到就是呢，我现在是没有自己的开车，我自己在开车了。
I came out of my home one morning just after I left politics, and I got in the back seat of the car, and it didn't move.
我在这个辞去总理这个之后呢，我回到家，第二天我上车，结果呢，我坐车后面车后座，这个车不走了。
And the next thing I learned is that it's hard to find parks.
第二个呢，发现的是呢，第一个我自己开车，第二个呢，发现停车位很难找。
And then I had to learn how to arrange my own meetings.
然后呢，我还在学习怎么样安排自己的会议。
And I've also learned that customers never want to pay as much as my products are worth.
然后我才发现呢，这些 消费者客户呢永远不想付我想要的钱价格。
And I've learnt that if you ask other people for money to put into your business, they ask lots of difficult questions.
然后等一下，你想让别人投资你的生意的时候呢，他总是问你一系列难的问题。
And that shareholders and bankers are quite important.
我也发现我们的股东和这个银行家都是非常重要的。
And I also learned that the best investment is always the one you could have made last year.
我发现呢，这个你最好的投资，经常是头一年你应该做的事情，前年应该做，去年应该做的事情，也就是总是后悔。
Some of the young people I work with are trading in cryptocurrencies.
哦。
Bitcoin.
And others. 所以我发现呢，跟我自己认识一些人呢，这些年轻人，他们都是在投资比特币赚了很多钱。
And they're always telling me these stories about someone who bought a cryptocurrency for 1 cent and now it's worth $100.
但还讲到其他另外一个这个数字货币哈，他说呢，他跟我说有个人呢是1分钱买的。现在有100块钱了。
So I'm assuming there's some of those people here, and I'd be keen to get your advice on the way out.
所以呢，我在这里面呢，你们当中可能有些人会给我很多的启发哈。我呢，等我这个走的时候，你们告诉我一些想法、一些建议。
Most of us, though, are in businesses that are much less spectacular, where good decision making and hard work is what makes the business valuable and the customers happy.
所以，但是很多事情呢，并不是说好像很宏伟、很壮观、非常的让人羡慕。很多事情是正常的工作，让我们的客户满意。
So I wish you well for 2021. I expect it will be a more confusing year than 2020, just because no one quite knows what's going to happen.
所以呢，祝你们2021年好运。但是呢，我相信2021年呢，比2020年还要让人困惑。
And I want to acknowledge the 20 years of the Fujian Chamber of Commerce, and no doubt in another 20 years you'll have some real success. Thank you very much.
祝贺我们这个福建商会哈，福建商会快20周年了，也希望你这后面20年呢，20年依然是非常成功的。So time for questions.
现在是现场问答时间。
Frank, sorry.
Hi, Sir Bill. Thank you very much for your time to come here to talk to us. My question is, as a former Prime Minister and Finance Minister, what's your advice to the current government? How to balance when they introduce the policies to try to control the house price without damaging the rest of the economy?
Well, I've made a policy of not giving the current government advice.
这个问题是什么？问题是说你是前总理、前财政部长，那么你对现任政府在这控制房价的同时又不损害其他经济方面的，你有什么建议？他说其实我有个政策呢，就是呢，我现在不会给现任政府提供任何建议。
During the 2017 election campaign, I did have the opportunity to hear what was then the opposition promising to fix the house prices, and I think we get to see the results of that.
Sorry, 在2017年的时候，在大选的时候呢，在大选期间呢，现在的政府以前的反对党说我们会控制房价的，我现在还要看看他怎么做的。
My children are now trying to buy houses, so they have been pretty surprised at how high the prices are, and it looks like they're going to keep going up for a while yet.
我的孩子们也在想买房子，然后呢，他们到市场一看，就觉得好像没有什么指望了，可能还要再等一等。
And they rightly, the young ones that I talk to, do understand that if they take on $1 million of debt, and interest rates go up a little bit, then they'll be under pressure. And I'm impressed with how careful they are.
那么我的比较年纪小的一些孩子，他们也意识到，就是说我如果借贷100万的话呢，一旦利息往上涨的话呢，他们会压力非常大的。所以我很惊讶，他们现在已经意识到这个问题了，这很小心了。Frankie.
Hi, my name is Frankie, for those who don't know me, and I'm here in my personal capacity to support my wife. And direct commenting to Nancy, I had such a privilege to marry a lady from Fujian, so that's how I got in today. So I've got a question for you, that you spoke at Jarden's investment seminar recently. A lot of the people here in New Zealand, especially in the Chinese community, knows how to raise debt by talking to the right bank, but not so much on the private equity. So when you've got 3 or 4 people with a few millions and forming a mutual fund or a private equity vehicle, what are the risks that they are going to face? And would you please share your risk controls, how you're going to mitigate those, please?
Look, I'm just the beginner. It's odd experience, but I know a lot more about how to raise $2 billion for people buying New Zealand government bonds than I do about raising $2 million for a small business. But what I have learned in a short time is there's plenty of money around. There's lots of bad ideas that don't deserve to be funded, and there always has been. There's no shortage of money, just shortage of good ideas. But the one thing I've now learned to be really careful about is who the people are, and getting alignment, getting a common sense of purpose. Because I'm a bit of a, what I think of as a conviction investor. And that is, I want to really believe in something and then I'll take a bigger risk on it. And if you do that, then you need to find people who think the same way. And it's harder to work with people who do a little bit of everything and hope something works out. I want them to be all pointing in the same direction and pretty focused. And I've found that if you get that bit right, then it's easier to raise the money.
Frankie， 我不知道是完全你的问题啊，就是说你说就是想问一下有个人想筹资是不是？然后呢再看举行建议是这个意思吗？OK，
对，其实就是大家知道怎么融资了，就是对于比如说有3、5成群的好友，大家有3、4千万放在一起买地啊、投资啊，然后是有一些风险的。然后在这些风险的情况下，如何转嫁风险？如何在这个风险的这个过程当中，如何寻找对的律师
？OK， 我们是 Bill 他的话就是呢，他也在学习。也就是呢，这个呢，其实他认为就是，如果你要找人来这个投资的话呢，他需要首先你自己对你自己要有非常有信心，很明白你要做什么，然后你找的人呢也要非常的明白你要做什么，而且是非常相信你做的事情，这种人呢，你可能会比较好的去做你的这个融资的或者融资这个伙伴，而不是那些到处撒点钱，这个也不知道到底是怎么样的。这些人呢，好像不是特别好的这种融资的伙伴，所以呢，一旦你明白你要做什么，而且是有计划，那么呢，你就可以冒一点险。那么他就这种人，他说呢，我不是到处撒东西的，我就是呢，如果我想做这个事情，我觉得事情很值得做，而且能做，我就冒点风险，我也去做，而不是说这边撒点，那边撒一点。是吧 ？I hope I understood your comments.
Okay.
Yeah, Right Honourable Sir Bill English, thank you very much for your coming to the function. You are as a Prime Minister and Finance Minister, and I know you are very supportive to the Chinese community, especially for the Fujian community. And I remember you have been to Linda City for the foundation and the opening ceremony for the ANFA business in China. So thank you very much. And also I'd like to express my admirable and appreciation in about 4 years ago, when after the election finished, you do not compromise your faith and your core value to the New Zealand First Party in order to form a government. Government up and down and go and coming, but faith and core values is last forever. Thank you and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
我翻译一下吧，这个很重要的。I translate that. 就是我们的黄会长说呢，就是呢对我们的Sir Bill表示感谢。因为他以前也去过福建，去过宁德、北安发这个生产线大概是去一些减产，然后呢在上一届2017年大选中呢，是呢我们这个Bill呢他没有放弃他的原则，没有向优先党妥协，所以他认为他很敬佩Sir Bill。
And my question actually is the same question as a friend. He asked about house price. So okay, I ask another question. As a financial minister, you mentioned about the Bitcoin investment. Now Bitcoin price is in the sky high. So from your point of view, what do you think investment about Bitcoin? Thank you.
Well, for the young, the people I've seen invest in it, I hope it works is the way they imagine it should, imagine it will. But you're going to get all sorts of weird things happening because interest rates are so low, and so people go and do things they would never normally think of in order to earn a return. And I think we're in the easy part of that process. So at the moment, interest rates low, look like they'll stay low. People are out there buying all sorts of things, doing all sorts of deals. But over time, though, that risk is going to become more obvious, particularly as interest rates start rising. Now that could be 2 years, it could be 3 years, it could be 5 years. But it's going to happen. And I'm a bit concerned that now both the US and Chinese economy are heavily indebted, and they can't keep growing on the back of debt. Even if you think what they've done so far is the right thing to do, they can't go and do it all again. And as interest rates rise, there's going to be some real risks. So I'm expecting the next 5 to 7 years to be fairly bumpy, quite different from the last 10 years.
那么刚刚这个黄会长问的问题就在于是说呢，除了这个房地产这个比特币，那么问就是说你认为比特币投资怎么样？我们是Bill回答就是呢，实际上是因为现在利息很低，所以发生很多奇怪的事情。因为利息低，所以大家好像觉得钱放银行也不值钱，都到处投，所以你发现钱很多，但是呢，这个东西是不正常的，那么可能在2年、3年、5年。这个利息会涨起来之后呢，很多事情就会发生变化。那么现在中国和美国政府实际上都借了很多钱，背了很多债务，这也是不可持续的，因为你借那么钱之后呢，对银行造成很大的压力，所以呢，一旦这个利息上来之后呢，就会有很多问题。所以我期待呢，就是在今后的5年到7年，可能会有一些困难，也就是说不会像前10年那样那么顺利。
Can we have one more question? Yes, please.
Okay. Charles.
Thank you, Dr. Yang. Thank you, Sir English. So I have 2 questions. I'm from Chinese Herald. Yeah, I have 2 questions. The first is about economy. So do you agree with that the GDP's decrease means New Zealand is back in recession? And we know the government is overprinting currency notes. What consequences we will see in the future? And the second question is about yourself. And you said you've been focusing on business. So you came to our office several years ago as Prime Minister. Maybe you could come to our office once again as a businessman. So my question is, what's a typical day for you as a business leader, and what business are you involved in?
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I'll come to your office if you're willing to sell your business.
他这个问题哈，恰好是从中文先驱报的啊。他问了2个问题，第一个就是这个我们 GDP 现在是负增长，是不是说我们进入衰退了？这是他想听总理的前总理的一个话。第二个就是呢，以前那个是现在这个生意做什么？因为以前从政嘛，现在做生意了嘛，现在以前到底做什么啊？这个描述一下你的这种日常生活大概是。然后就是呢，以前做总理期间到我们办公室，现在是不是不从政之后做生意之后，是不是也来办公室来看一看啊？然后他第一句话就是呢，这个如果你要办的生意了，我去看一看，到办公室去走一走。
Yeah, when Dr. Zhang was translating for me as a politician, sometimes I wondered whether he translated what he thought I should have said. And I think he's just done that. With that, I don't necessarily think we're back in recession, but it's a warning, isn't it? The negative GDP number is a bit of a warning that not everyone's doing well and there's some uncertainty. And that's good to get that lesson just when everyone's won the America's Cup and thinks everything's going fine. Well, for some people it's not going that well. And as for... sorry, Peter.
Okay.
Or have you already said that?
I translated one sentence, the rest just the child's sentences. Interpret. 他怀疑我说这个以前我当总理的时候，我这个杨健博士跟我这个翻译的时候，我经常想他是不是把他想说的话当成翻译出来。然后呢，这个我跟他讲说，我只翻译了1句话，其他都是他悄悄说话。他是说呢，这个 GDP 这个负增长呢，其实呢不能说肯定说是进入衰退，但至少是一个警告，就是呢我们有很多经济挑战，市场没有那么顺利的。Did I miss anything?
No, that's not.
请问大家还有什么问题吗？因为其实我们真的非常感谢我们的 Bill 先生，因为他今天刚刚到达奥克兰，应该是2个小时之前。因为 you just got there Auckland 2 hours ago, right, from Wellington. 然后他很快就要回去了，今天他就是 just for this meeting， 所以大家抓紧这个机会。我们再给大家1个问题的机会，还有时间吗 ？Do we still have time?
I've got time to say one more thing, and,
one more thing. Okay, yeah,
and that is, I just wanted to acknowledge Dr. Zhang, who played a very important role in New Zealand as our first prominent Chinese MP, and that changed the way Parliament saw politics in New Zealand and the Chinese community. And I want to thank you very much for that and for your years of public service. And now you'll be finding out, like I did, how to make a living when you're not getting paid by the taxpayer.
Indeed.
You can translate that.
他刚刚感谢我这个对这个新西兰政治的这种贡献啊，这个就不再说了，反正就是意思就是说，过去9年做了很多事情。然后
Do it properly. Do it properly.
然后呢，然后他讲到就是说，这个你大概像跟我一样，现在看看怎么样赚钱养家了。
这杨博士今天也特别的好，他主动说，哎呀，这样就Bill爵士的翻译就由我来做吧，这样我可以做一个详细的说明。真的 ，Thank you so much, Dr. Zhang. It's really helpful. 还有另外的吗？刚才我这边有一位有举手的，对不对
？One more, right?
Yes, last one.
你好，Sir Bill. 我想问一个问题，就是说，我们大家知道，我们新西兰对中国的贸易依存度是超过30%以上，所以说新中关系是非常重要的。但是在目前来说，美国的拜登政府上台以后，他不断的胁迫他的盟友，来采取对华对抗的政策。我就非常担心新西兰能不能顶住美国或者澳大利亚的压力，就是说继续保持独立的外交政策，不要去试图激化中国的矛盾，因为我们新西兰现在已经很难受了。旅游业作为第1大产业，我周围很多朋友啊，很多人基本上都回来，30%的入住率平均都没有。现在乳制品产业销往中国可能比以前好，但是如果说失去了新中关系这个前提的话，这些东西都谈不上。所以我想知道，我们工党政府或者说我们作为国家党的在野党，如何监督我们现在的工党政府来保持良好的新中关系？
你这个问题等一下我回答的。我的讲话是重点。So the question is basically, China is a very important trading partner, It's very important to have a strong relationship with China. But what do you think about New Zealand government's policy towards China? Will New Zealand be able to stand against the pressure from the United States in dealing with China? Because it's so important to many of us, like tourism, very important, dairy industry, and all these, as we do want to see a strong, stable relationship with China. What's your comment?
Yeah, well, New Zealand has proven in the past to be good at maintaining its own particular relationship with China.
新西兰当然是应该去保持非常好的这种跟中国的关系。
You know, we're like a mouse that has to find its way among the elephant's feet.
对，我们就是呢，我们小嘛，所以呢，我们像是在这个一个小老鼠在这个大象之间寻找一条路出来一样。
And so it's important that we understand our own interest clearly and act consistent with that.
所以我们呢一定要明白我们的国家利益在哪里，所以呢要一定的始终如一的来追求这种目标。
And so I would hope, you know, the current government has maintained that approach over the last few years, including under Winston Peters. It's just, I'm not quite sure how they're going to handle it as the pressure grows.
那么在过去几年，这个政府呢，事实上基本上是保持这种方针和政策，也即使是在Peters当这个副总理期间，但是呢，今后的压力会更大，我不能肯定，我不能确定他们会怎么样。
But Dr. Zhang will be able to give you a more educated view than me.
杨健博士会跟你更好的一起回答啊。Okay.